Alright, Shalom. Before I get started, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory to YAHAWAH, Ba'ashem, YAHAWAHSHI, Ba'ashem, Rakakadash, and double honors to the apostles and elders that I learned this truth from, the men at GMS, and the brethren with the like mind and doctrine. This video I'm about to show is basically going into leprosy, basically, and how it relates to Esau Edom. But this video right here is basically it debunks this ideology of Egyptology that they say, which they're gonna show it in the video, that they say that that's black people or so-called white people lost their melanin because they went into a region, a cold region where the sun didn't give off too much of its UV rays, and they lost their pigmentation through that method, through that theory, which they debunked that. But even though they debunk it, they still are confused about a lot of things, because they saying it's a myth, race is a myth, and evolution of the skin. It's like it said the evolution of skin color, and the title was said the myth of race and evolution of skin color part 3. But yeah, I'm gonna put a disclaimer too that this is on free use act, on the free use act. This is for educational purposes. That yeah, we are all we all come from Adam, but there's I think, yeah, 18 families, which I'm gonna get that too. I might as well get that. No, I'll get that later. But I'm gonna let this video play, then bring out some scriptures. I'm not sure what I'm gonna name it though.
My ancestors, obviously, at some point, lost most of their melanin or skin pigment.
So this guy here basically says that he perceives to be Esau Edom. He said that his ancestors lost their pigment, which in actuality that's true, because they go back through the spirit. They have the spirit of Cain. They go back to Cain, because Cain was the Most High placed a curse on Cain. A mark, which the Most High put a mark on him, and that mark was basically leprosy. So he was a leopard. Cain was a leopard, and he came back through the spirit through Esau Edom, which Esau Edom is the progenitor, or actuality they are the so-called white race. So that's where he comes from, and he's actually right. They did lose their pigment when when that mark was put upon him after after he slew Abel. So I'm gonna let it play, and I'm gonna bring some scriptures out too.
Ancestors, obviously, at some point, lost most of their melanin or skin pigment.
But how did this population lose its melanin is the looming question. Some scholars attribute this phenomenon to the Ice Age theory. A theory that suggests that when the Ice Age occurred, natural selection began to kick in, which caused the human body to adapt to the colder environment by drastically reducing the production of melanin, which is advantageous to warmer environments. As a result of adapting to the colder climate, melanin was not needed as much, resulting in their skin turning lighter. Still, other scholars contend that the evolution of skin color resulted from the geographical locations and climate conditions from which populations originated from. That is, the color of our skin, whether light or dark, is a direct result from humans' proximity to the equator. In other words, the closer to the equator humans lived caused the body to produce more melanin, which resulted in darker skin to compensate for the hotter environment. In contrast, the further away from the equator humans lived caused the body to produce less melanin, which resulted in lighter skin to compensate for the colder environment. But once again, science doesn't necessarily agree. A significant part of science deals with observation and logic. In other words, logic and science cannot contradict each other, they have to line up. When carefully analyzing the hypothesis that skin color evolved as a result of humans moving to subtropical climates closer to the equator or to colder environments away from the equator doesn't add up logically or scientifically. Humans today share the same biological characteristics as our Homo sapien ancestors. For example, our ancestors had vital organs such as lungs, kidneys, and hearts. We have lungs, kidneys, and hearts. They were bipedal, we're bipedal. We're the same species. They reproduced sexually and had fertile offspring. We reproduce sexually and have fertile offspring. So what did our ancestors possess internally to make their skin color darker or lighter depending on their proximity to the equator and exposure to UV light that we don't have? So what's the name of the process in which human skin color miraculously changed? What part of the body triggered that to happen? What's the scientific explanation to the process? Where is the collection of data to analyze? Where is the evidence to support these assertions? Did our ancestors have some magical cutoff switch that interacted with the sun that said, my skin is yellow, stop turning darker? Then others had a magical cutoff switch that said, my skin is light brown, stop turning darker. Then others had a magical cutoff switch that said, my skin is dark brown, stop turning darker. If their hypothesis is true, then everyone who lives along the equator should have the same colored skin. So why is it that all the populations who live along the equator don't have the same skin color? In other words, why did this phenomenon that supposedly happened 15 to 30,000 years ago not occurring today? If your answer is lack of vitamin D, then why don't we see malnutrition kids who are...
See, that's one thing I want to say about that too. See, they say is that it doesn't make sense, basically, according to science, that why are not all the people that's near the equator, whereas the sun, and whereas they say is hotter, why not all the people there dark of a darker skin complexion, and why not all the people that's in the colder area of the earth are not of a lighter skin complexion? If that's what it teaches, what they say skin complexion evolved from, which that's what Egyptology, that nonsense of Egyptology teach, and also those are philosophies of Esau Edom. You know, Egyptology was created by a so-called white man. You know, and also just like this method, this ideology here of the myth of race and the evolution of skin color. Well, he's saying it's race is a myth, you know, and also the evolution of skin color, that is a myth, you know, because it's not an evolutionary thing, you know. It's basically all all people have melanated skin, you know. Salakia, Noah, you know, even going back to the garden, Adam and Eve, all had melanated skin, but it was just Cain, which, you know, that mark of Cain was the Most I put that mark on him, and he was given the leprosy, that curse, which is given shown in Esau Edom, the self-proclaimed white people, man. Like that's what they suffer from, leprosy, and and also what I really want to point out too, that I think they believe this guy here, you know, he believes in um the evolution of humans, the from apes or monkeys, that men evolved from apes, so to speak. So that doesn't make sense either, because if men evolved from apes, why there's still apes and monkeys around? You know, it's the same idea. That's the same understanding, the same concept that that men didn't evolve from apes. You know, because there wouldn't be any apes or monkeys around if that was the case. Same concept with the skin complexion, where they said, well, why are there not all dark skinned people near the equator and light skinned people near the 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 north part of the hemisphere or the colder area of the planet. That's the same concept, which is all confusion.
Vitamin D deficient in third world countries, skin turning lighter? Or why don't we see dark-skinned people living in areas such as England where the sun's UV rays are short, skin turning lighter? On the other hand, why don't we see people with extremely light skin who live in places such as South Africa where the sun's UV rays are harsher, skin turning darker, and producing darker offspring? Again, where is the collection of data to analyze? Where is the evidence to support these assertions? And lastly, if the evolution of skin color is a result of living in warmer or colder climates, then how do you explain people with blonde hair and blue eyes? How do you explain people with red hair? Characteristics which clearly point to recessive genes. Did the sun, or lack of it, change that as well? Once again, from a logical standpoint, it doesn't make sense, and from a scientific standpoint, it seems to be based purely on conjecture. So what does make sense, you ask? If various skin colors aren't caused by exposure or lack of exposure to the sun, then what gives us different variations of skin color? More importantly, what does science say about the matter? Again, it all surrounds around the word we mentioned earlier, which is mutations, random changes in a DNA sequence. Science, along with genetics and biology, point to a skin pigmentation disorder caused by DNA mutations known as albinism as the centrifugal force of the evolution of skin color. In particular, oculocutaneous type 1 albinism and oculocutaneous type 2 albinism.
Albinism is a group of genetic disorders that are associated with lack of pigment in the skin, hair, and eyes. Albinos have the same number of pigment-producing cells as everyone else. They just lack the ability to produce or distribute the pigment in their body.
Albinism isn't limited to only humans. A huge population of the animal kingdom can create an offspring with albinism as well. For example, this alligator with naturally dark pigmentation can create this alligator with albinism. This tiger with naturally dark pigmentation can create this tiger with albinism. Likewise, this horse with naturally dark pigmentation can create this horse with albinism. Even snakes, squirrels, and deer can create offspring with albinism. This genetic mutation has been occurring in humans for thousands of years.
It's a genetic mutation. Usually it's inherited, and so it's autosomal recessive, meaning that you have to have two mutated genes for it to appear on your skin. If you just have one mutated gene, you're a carrier, but you'll still have normally colored skin because you still have enough active enzyme where you're making the pigment. And so you can have two parents who are carriers, so each of them has one normal and one mutated gene, and then their child can have albinism.
Indeed, just as people who look differently are caused by genetic mutations, albinism is caused by a series of genes mutating within the body. The aftermath of the mutation process takes place beneath our skin in a group of specialized cells known as melanocytes.
Melanocytes kind of sit at the bottom, one of the bottom layers of what's called the epidermis, the first layer of the skin. What they do is they make melanin, and they send that melanin throughout all the skin cells. all races and all colors of people on Earth have the same relative number of melanocytes. Those are the amounts of pigment-producing cells in the skin. Everyone has the same amount. Now, Caucasians or lighter-skinned people have less production in their melanocytes of pigment. So they manifest that.
So I'm gonna say that too. If you look up the word Caucasian, that means cave dweller. So there is a difference between race. So Caucasian means cave dweller, and that's what the Europeans, the so-called Europeans, or the so-called whites are. Because they come from the caves. You know, and if there's a myth of race, why are there distinction of people even to this day? Cause everybody are distinct, and I'm gonna just get that too. Since we're speaking on it, that's in Deuteronomy 38. I'm at Salakia 32 and verse 8. Deuteronomy 32 and verse 8, and it reads, "When the Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam, since we all come from Adam, he set bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel." So that's what happened. The Most High divided to the nations their inheritance, man. Like, he made, and when he separated the sons of Adam, so he separated us according to distinctions of behavior and landmass. He gave every nation, which there's 18 families of people, and he divided all these nations according to distinct characteristics and behaviors, you know, and that lets you know that they are different families. So it's 18 according to the Bible.
That manifests as their lighter skin tones. Darker skin patients make more melanin, and so their melanocytes are pumping out more pigment, which manifests as a darker color. And so what happens in albinism is that you have the melanocyte, you have the factory, but what you can't do is make or distribute the pigment, so you never see the pigment.
The word oculo refers to the eyes. The word cutaneous refers to the skin. The word oculocutaneous refers to a genetic disorder that affects the eyes and skin, but to varying degrees. As mentioned earlier, the two most common forms of albinism are oculocutaneous type 1 albinism and oculocutaneous type 2 albinism.
Oculocutaneous albinism type 1 is sort of the flagship of these diseases, where you have complete absence of the tyrosinase enzyme. And so that enzyme is critical in making melanin. So if you don't have that enzyme, you can't make pigment. So people who have oculocutaneous albinism usually have really light-colored or red-colored eyes. The hair will be a sort of blonde-white color. The skin will be very pale, almost translucent, where there's no pigment there.
See, that's what Esau Edom got. He got a translucent skin. That's why when it says the account in Genesis, the 25th chapter, he came out red, hairy, and Salakia. I'm gonna get it because he came out red and hairy all over Salakia. I'm not quoting it exactly. Genesis 25 and 25. And it says, Genesis chapter 5, verse 25. And it says, "And the first came out red all over like a hairy garment, and they called his name Esau," which Esau means wasted away, which they say came out red all over because his skin was translucent. so his blood shows forth through his skin. Just like this lady was saying that their pigmentation is translucent. So that's why he came out red all over, because his blood was showing forth through his skin, his translucent skin. You know, that's the so-called white race. Esau Edom is the so-called white race. And this lady right here is that they finna show up on my get an account with her out of the scriptures.
Oculocutaneous type 2 albinism refers to people who have extremely light skin, eyes, and hair, but possess the ability to produce small to moderate amounts of melanin in their bodies, allowing for the skin to tan slightly.
Oculocutaneous albinism type 2, and it tends to have a yellowish color to the hair, as well as the skin. They can have a little bit more of a tan.
See, that's too a blonde hair is a plague too. I'm gonna get that out of scripture. So like it. Or it might be yellow here. Yeah, that's what it is. See, I'm gonna get this out of Leviticus, the 13th chapter, in the 30th verse, and it says on the top, and it says, "Then the priest shall see the plague, and behold, if it be in sight deeper than the skin, and there be in it a yellow thin hair, then the priest shall pronounce him unclean, and it is a Salakia. Then the priest shall pronounce him unclean. It is a dry skull, Salakia, even a leprosy upon the head or beard." So even having yellow hair or blonde hair is a form of leprosy, is a plague basically, you know. So that's an account too that, you know, see here that this is a plague that the Most High placed on Esau Edom, man, or Cain, originally Cain. You know, it's a mark.
The eye color of people with
It tends to have a yellowish color to the hair, as well as the skin. They can have a little bit more of a tan.
The eye color of people with oculocutaneous type 2 albinism can range from various light colors, but oftentimes it's blue. Melanin not only gives the skin its color, it also gives the eyes its color as well, in particular, brown. Just as albinism is caused by low amounts of melanin being produced by the body, blue eyes are the result of low amounts of melanin being produced in the iris.
You see, that's why they have blue eyes, because of lack of melanin. They have the blue eye color. You know, that's an indication of what it says, low melanin.
Understanding these two types of albinism reveals a clearer picture of the evolution of skin color.
Do people ever mistake you for being a white lady?
Yes, all the time. Ones that don't know any better about me, about albinos, they ask me questions. You know, like, are you white? Or is your mother white? And I tell them no. Then I explain it to them that I'm albino. And what color is your kids? Like that. Yeah, there's a lot of them that don't understand. And some people do mistake me as a white person. I say, no, I'm not white. I'm an albino. They say, what that mean? I say, I'm black. It just don't show. The color don't show that I'm black, but I'm black. My parents are black. You know, come from black family.
This is
See, she's a perfect. This lady here, one in the back. This lady here is a perfect example of what happened to Miriam in the Bible. You know, she had translucent skin, which that's an account also in the Bible, and she's a perfect example of this account in the Bible. It's out of Numbers, the 12th chapter and the 10th verse. Numbers 12 and 10. There's an account when Miriam had talked against Moses. Miriam and had had talked against Moses. I think because of the Ethiopian wife that he had. And it says and the cloud departed, which is that cloud is the chariot of YAHAWAHSHI, and the cloud departed from off the tabernacle, and behold, Miriam became leprous, white as snow, and Aaron looked upon Miriam, and behold, she was leprous. So that's the perfect account of that lady that you just saw in the video, that she became leprous. She became white as snow, which is translucent. She had translucent skin, and also there's an account of Moses that lets you know that the children of Israel was of a melanin or dark complexion people. I'm gonna get this account out of Exodus, Salakia. Exodus 4 and 6. Exodus chapter 4, verse 6, and it reads, and the Lord said furthermore unto him, speaking to Moses, put now thine hand into thy bosom. And he put his hand into his bosom, and when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous as snow. So that lets you know that um that Moses had melanated or dark. He was a dark complexion. He had skin. Brown skin. He was at dark complexion, and it says verse 7. It says in this and he said, put thine hand into thy bosom again, and he put his hand into his bosom again, and plucked it out of his bosom, and behold, it was turned again as his other flesh. So that lets you know he had melanin skin, and in the account of Jacob and Esau, Jacob, description of wasn't his skin, his description wasn't given because he looked like everybody else. He had melanated skin. Esau was the only one that looked different. So that's why his description was given there in Genesis 25, the 25th chapter and 25th verse. But this lady right here, she's a perfect example of Miriam when she was plagued with leprosy.
What that mean? I said I'm black. It just
See, they confusing her with a white lady.
is like that. Yeah, there are a lot of them that don't understand, and some people do mistake me as a white person. I say no, I'm not white. I'm an albino. They say what that mean? I say I'm black. It just don't show. The color don't show that I'm black, but I'm black. My parents are black. Come from black family.
This is where Dr.
See that's a perfect example that they people think she's a so-called white lady, which is Esau Edom, but in actuality from my perception, she's from from the house of Israel. She's an Israelite, so-called black lady, and let me see if and I think I want to get this out too. That I don't know if I brought this out earlier, but yeah, I brought that out already. But I might make a second part to this. I might let it play a little bit more and make a second part to this.
Diab's assertion of the two types of Africans that he says were in the original population from which all humans come from, but who have different features, comes into the picture. When two extremely dark-skinned people, who Diab refers to as having jet black skin, coarse hair, white noses, and thick lips, produce an offspring with albinism, oftentimes the offspring will look like the person shown here, with extremely light skin, yellow or blondish coarse hair, a white nose, thick lips, and like eyes.
So yeah, I'm gonna just leave it off there. That's we can so-called black people can produce, or people with melanin can produce um offspring that looks like this, that so-called look like a so-called white person, because we just like the account of Rachel, Salakia, Isaac and Rebecca, Salakia. See, that's what happened to them. They was both for melanin. They was melanated people, or so-called dark-skinned people. They had dark skin, I mean, and they produced Esau Edom, which is translucent skin. Well, that's why he came out red. I'll call his name Esau, which means wasted away. You know, because having that leprosy is a curse. Nonetheless, it's a burden in actuality. That's why a lot of white people develop, so-called white people develop skin cancer, and they have to if they out in the sun a long time, they have to wear get sunscreen and things like that because it's a curse. you know. But I'm gonna just leave it off there. And I hope the video was edifying. And I want to say, call Halayim La Yahawah, by Hashem, YAHAWAHSHI, by Hashem, Rakah Kadash, and double honors to the apostles and elders that I learned the truth from, the men of GMS. Again, and the brothers with a like-minded doctrine. And I want to say, Shalom to the next time, Yahawah Ratazah, which means Lord willing, and Wah Abba Babo.